Phil Naessens show is on in five, four, three, two, one.
Welcome to the Phil Naessens Show. I'm happy to have you here. We're going to talk NBA basketball for the full hour today. Later on this show, Amar will be here to talk a little Utah Jazz hoops. And then we're going to take a look at Eastern Conference teams on the bubble. But up first, the Portland Trailblazers are on a roll again. Since the last time we talked about them, and at the time of this recording, they're on a 3-game winning streak, I believe, maybe even 4. And to join me to do all that from BlazersEdge.com, please welcome Dave Deckard to the show. Dave, how you doing? Welcome back to the show, I should say.
I am doing well, as are the Blazers this week. Without LaMarcus Aldridge, they have managed to win 4 of 5 games. Now, some of that has been scheduling. It's been kind to them. Some of that has been injuries to opposing teams. Also fortunate for the Blazers. But still, when you're missing your all-star and most of your front court and you win 80% of your games, you are going to take that.
Absolutely you will. And I'll tell you what, it's really nice to have a clear audio today, hopefully. It's really nice. But honestly speaking, LaMarcus Aldridge, now we're recording this on Saturday because we have different time constraints here and people are busy. But what is his status going forward now?
Well, he had a groin strain and he's back practicing with the team now. As we speak, the team's preparing for a game versus Denver. We don't know yet whether he will play in that one, but it looks like he'll be back in that one or probably Monday against the Los Angeles Lakers. So he is on his way back.
And that's a very good thing for Portland Trailblazers fans. It has to be, because he's had such a fantastic year and he's really come into his own, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been fairly consistent on the offensive end. The presence of Robin Lopez has allowed him to up his rebounding. He's really been a team leader. And most of all, he's the grease that makes the Blazers offense run. Other opposing teams have to double team him or at least pay attention to him. That bends the defense his way, which allows Portland's three-point shooting to tell on the weak side off of the pass. So he really helps a lot of things happen for the team, and they're not the same without him. Even on this winning streak, you can tell the offense looked kind of disjointed. It was kind of catch as catch can, and Blazer fans should be looking forward to Aldridge returning along with some normalcy.
Exactly. Now, Portland has some interesting basketball games coming up. Wednesday night, they host the Atlanta Hawks, the reeling Atlanta Hawks. This is almost a time when you want to really lay the hammer on a basketball team as you prepare for Dallas, Houston, Memphis, and San Antonio coming up, correct?
Absolutely. The Blazers are going to have to take advantage, actually, of all 3 weaker opponents coming up. They have Denver, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. With Atlanta, it really depends on which team shows up, doesn't it? I mean, they can be really good or they can be really bad. Al Horford going out really hurt them and will hurt them in terms of playing the Blazers, because Portland can be vulnerable to opposing big men, and Atlanta doesn't really have any at the moment. They're depending on, a lot of different people to step forward, and often they don't. Lately, they haven't, period. None of them have. So hopefully that will be an easy win for Portland, but you never know. They're both teams that can go up and down.
Well, that's absolutely right, but they've been decimated by injuries. Their entire front court is out. Paul Millsap is now out. And I'll tell you, without those big men, I don't see how they can cause too much problems for Portland on Wednesday night. I don't see how that could possibly be unless Jeff Teague scores about 40, which is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, well, Teague, I believe, is somewhere else now. So that's certainly not going to happen. And I think that probably what you're going to see is, obviously, they will rely on guard scoring. It looks like I'm incorrect about that. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking someone else. Anyway, they're going to rely on backcourt scoring, which works against the Blazers, tell you the truth. Portland has allowed a lot of career highs from opposing guards. So they always have to worry that somebody will go off for 40 on them. This is part and parcel of Portland's defensive problems this year. However, you're right. They don't have the front court. Portland doesn't have the front court. Hopefully Aldridge will be fully healthy, but you got most of Portland's reserves out with injury as well. So Portland's a little thin up there as well. We'll have to see. Obviously, you'd assume Portland would win, but you always worry.
Oh, absolutely you do. That's no doubt about that. But then coming up after that, on Friday night, the Dallas Mavericks on the road. Now, this is where Portland hits the trail, and they travel to Dallas, Houston, Memphis, San Antonio, and New Orleans. So they'll be gone for about 11 days, 9 to 11 days. What do you like about this matchup on Friday night with Dallas?
Well, Dallas is still kind of a veteran team, and they're a little bit disjointed. And they tend to play against the Blazers a little slow, a little soft, as if they're going to, walk away with the victory just because of their experience. Now, sometimes that works. The Blazers have lost narrowly to Dallas this year, but they also shellacked Dallas earlier in the season. So it depends. If Dallas is motivated, they're dangerous. But for some reason, they just haven't seemed to take Portland seriously. And then the Blazers have just kind of locked them up and put them away. So that's not the one I'm worried about so much. Houston and Memphis are huge challenges because of personnel and style of play. That's a big, big issue for the Blazers to beat either one of them.
That's absolutely right, because the inside games of those two basketball teams, particularly Memphis, is going to give them fits. Now, how do you defeat a team like Memphis if you're Portland?
With Marc Gasol back, it's a problem. I'm not sure they do have a solution simply because Memphis plays such good defense and also has the firepower to score on Portland. I mean, this was one of the crushing losses of Portland's season at the end of January here. They lost by about 17 points to Memphis at home. And Aldridge scored. He had a great game. Basically, nobody else did. And Memphis held the Blazers to 81 points, which is just unheard of. I mean, the Blazers score 107, 108 a game, and they were 20-some points below their average simply because Memphis clogged the lane, kept away the easy points, which is normal with the Blazers. They don't score a lot in the lane, but they were able to do that, plus keep defenders in front of shooters, which really bothers Portland if they don't have the open shot outside. They don't have the dribble drive or step away attack usually to get free. And then the other thing Memphis did is they controlled the boards. And if Portland can't get offensive rebounds, their scoring and efficiency goes way down. And Memphis is a triple threat there. They can do all three things. And when you can do all three things to Portland, they just don't have the individual talent of, let's say, a Carmelo Anthony, obviously Kevin Durant, something like that, to just step away from the offense and take over the game by themselves.
That's exactly right. We talk Memphis Grizzlies basketball every week here. And one of the things that, if you're going to beat Memphis, you got to have great guard play. It has to be from the guards because you're not going to get anything inside with Randolph and Gasol. And I think that honestly, Portland has the guards to do it, whether they can or not. And it also is going to depend on the health of Tony Allen too.
Yeah, well, the problem with Portland's guards is you have Damian Lillard, who's certainly capable of scoring on anyone, but when he starts really taking over long stretches of the game, then everybody else's offense doesn't click. In order for everyone else to score, he kind of has to step back a little bit. He's young. It's still an either-or kind of thing with him. And Wesley Matthews is great in the catch and shoot. He can sometimes post up, or if he gets a steal on the break, he can finish. But he's not that kind of one-on-one offensive player that you have to worry about driving or pressuring the defense from his side of the court. So what that does is, as long as they can make a run at Matthews on the weak side and kind of bother his shot a little bit, they don't have to stay up real close to him, which allows them an extra defender to put against Lillard or, for instance, down low or grabbing the rebound. And again, that's a real problem for the Blazers.
It sure is. Now, Houston on Sunday. What are the keys for you, or I should say for Portland, to defeat the Beard and the Weird?
Yeah, it's a big problem because even if Harden doesn't go off individually, the Rockets can create such pressure with Dwight Howard inside that it frees up their three-point shooters, who then have a field day. And Portland hasn't been able to solve that entirely. Their defense usually has to pick, either collapse in the lane and let people have open outside shots, or cover at the three-point arc and get destroyed in the lane. Now, most opponents have trouble doing both, but Houston has that inside-out attack, which drives Portland crazy. And when worst comes to worst, in a possession, they just bail out to Dwight Howard, usually. James Harden had a real success in the first game of the season against the Blazers, but not so much after. But Howard is a perpetual problem because his physicality and athleticism just overwhelms Portland's inside defenders.
Yes, he would. You know, the other key, too, for them is Terrence Jones. He seems to enjoy playing against Portland also. And the other guy to look out for, and when all else fails, Chandler Parsons has quietly had a fantastic season. He's done some serious damage. He's slashing, and they're finding him when Howard's being double-teamed. So this is actually a very difficult matchup for Portland.
Yeah, it may be the most difficult matchup that Portland has in the whole league. And you're right about Parsons. I mean, he's just a silent assassin. He's the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak, because even when you stop Howard or put an extra man on him and Harden isn't scoring, and then you got to leave someone open, and it's Parsons, and then you go, oh, that figures. He just drained another three. And the Rockets are a real challenge. They've got a lineup that Portland is just not built to solve at this point. Or the other thing is Portland doesn't have that much of a bench. So you should see what happens when those reserve big guys have to go in against Houston's frontline players. If, say, Robin Lopez gets in foul trouble, which happens against Houston sometimes, or what have you, for whatever reason, he gets fatigued. And then you get those reserve big players in there, and then Houston it's like they're playing against a high school junior varsity team, and they will just destroy the Blazers.
You know, that's interesting because you would think that Houston would be a much better team record-wise than they are. Why do you think that is? Are they still trying to figure it out, or is it just the curse of Dwight Howard? What could it possibly be to you? Because when I look at this roster, I think they have a whip, but then they just don't sometimes show up.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, chemistry-wise, they've got to figure some things out. Howard has never been a real comfortable fit offensively because he's not your traditional low post center, but he demands the ball kind of like he was. Also, the other thing is he doesn't have a go-to move. Like, you have two kinds of traditional centers, right? You have the guy that goes down in the post that you can throw the ball to at any time and have a real high percentage shot, or you have your kind of mid-range Hakeem Olajuwon, almost Patrick Ewing later in his career guy, who has a go-to move or two, maybe 15 feet from the bucket that's just money. Howard's neither of those things. He's a huge physical specimen. He can do some amazing stuff, but when you throw him the ball, you don't ever quite know what's going to happen. That makes it challenging to work him into an offense, especially when he wants to be one of the star players on the team. And now you've also got Harden, who is also definitely interested in being a star player on the team. And you've got other guys who depend on those two setting him up. So on a given possession, I'm not sure entirely that they know what they're doing or where they want to go when they need a bucket. Now, they do pretty well. I mean, they shoot 47% plus from the field, which is real high for the league. And they obviously win their share of games, but it just feels like a chemistry and fit problem that when the chips are down, you don't know what's going to happen with this team. And that's a bad recipe if you want to be elite in the NBA.
Well said. Well said. And you were very classy about it, because I've been kind of hard on the beard and the weird. I'm not a fan of Dwight Howard. I just can't be. I don't know. Well, I guess I could go on and on. But anyhow, great stuff today, Dave. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure as always, and we'll do it again soon, hopefully.
Oh, we certainly will. That was Dave Deckard. You can find him over at blazersedge.com. Coming up next, Amar and I will take a look at the Utah Jazz. And we'll be right back. You're listening to The Phil Naessens Show.
Phil Naessens Show will return.
And it's the reason Al Gore invented the Internet.
After these brief messages.
Riveting talk radio.
Everybody get up.
People cannot get away from the Internet.
Well,
now.
I think it probably comes from porn as well. You know what I mean, that's got to be a big, strong thing.
Oh, that's gross. That's disgusting.
And it freaks me out.
My cheeks are sealed.
We love talk radio.
Bend over, baby.
Do you see what I'm saying?
WeirdTalkSuperstation.com.
Better than sex.
I don't know how good sex is.
We're going to do a lot of drinking.
Talk radio. Bend over, baby. That was great.
Do you know your fantasy sports? Would you like to make money at it? DraftStreet.com and the Phil Naessens Show would like to help you get started making money playing fantasy sports today. And we'll even give you the chance to get started making money today for free. On me. That's right. All you have to do is head on over to PhilNaessens.com or visit the show notes for this show. Click the Draft Street image at the top of the page and start making money playing fantasy sports at DraftStreet.com today.
Central Portugal's only English-speaking information station. This is Epics Radio. Listen online, www.epicsradio.com.
Read what happens when an Orange County housewife decides she likes another man more than her husband. Join Brooklyn through her struggles in this coming-of-age saga filled with full-blown drama and real-life secrets that are no longer kept. 2 great novels, 1 great author. You can find Brooklyn and Beau Chronicles at BrendaPerlin.com. That's www.BrendaPerlin.com. Great books and interviews with the authors that write them are featured on the Writer Showcase podcast. I invite you to check it out at thewritershow.wordpress.com. Fantasy Baseball Weekly is a weekly baseball podcast with a fantasy owner in mind. We give you tips, tricks, tools, and everything else we can think of to help you win your league. You can catch us at fantasybaseballweekly.wordpress.com or on philnaessens.com. Come check us out. Hi, this is Phil Naessens from This Week in Tennis and the Phil Naessens Show. Max Sports Channels offers the best in sports talk radio, as well as great music 24 hours a day. It's my daily destination, and I hope it's yours. The sports talk begins each and every day at 3 p.m. and ends around 9 p.m. Special programming on the weekends, and in between all that, the hottest music on the internet. That's Max Sports Channels. Make it your daily destination.
You're listening to AFR, the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now,
Here are some words of wisdom from Mr. Know-It-All.
back to the Phil Naessens Show.
What a dope. What a maroon.
Welcome back to the Phil Naessens Show. The Utah Jazz are hanging in there. And here to talk all about that and more, please welcome from SLCDunk.com, Amar is in the house. Amar, how you doing, man? More importantly, how are the Jazz?
Oh, I'm doing great, and the Jazz are they're kind of hanging in there, which is exactly the way that you put it, and that's precisely what's happening. Hanging in where? That's the question. It seems like the Utah Jazz are very content with not tanking. Some of the other teams are doing a way better job, so they're going to be the teams that are most likely to get those top 5 spots. Utah, on the other hand, they're trying to win every game possible, which is a nice, it's a moral victory, but at the same time, you don't get anywhere. If you look at the Jazz the last few years, regardless of who was on the team, they've always kind of ended up between number 8 and number 13. And that seems to be the case once again in Utah.
Yeah, well, you can't fault them. They're young kids, and they're playing hard, and they're trying their best, and they're actually producing some results that are going to carry them over in the coming years. They're going to get some success out of it, and that's a good thing. But I got to tell you, Kyrie Irving on Friday night, jeepers, he went off, didn't he? What the heck? What is with Kyrie Irving these days?
Yeah, Kyrie Irving, I try and write him off because of the record of his team, but then he comes out and he rips the heart out of the Jazz. On Friday night's game, Utah did a pretty good job of bottling him up. It was a close game. The Jazz started off really hot. And what happened was that it seems like he was just baiting us, seeing how we could do. And let's not forget that this was Cleveland playing without so many starters. And I think they were missing 2 or 3 of their best bench players as well. So Cleveland kind of played possum for the first half, and then Kyrie took over in the third quarter. And then it was game over. He had his first triple-double of his career. And if you actually look at what happened earlier in January, he did the same thing to Utah. Utah looked like they were going to run away with the game, and then Kyrie just turned it on in the third quarter. And I guess if you're a number 1 draft pick, if you're an all-star, this is the type of thing that you can do. You can change a game almost all by yourself. And Utah definitely showed that they don't have anyone of that caliber on their squad right now.
Not even Trey Burke.
Yeah, Trey Burke in his homecoming game. He's from Columbus, Ohio. And I guess, he had to buy all the extra tickets for his friends and family, and they all went to watch him. And he didn't even play half the game. He was shooting poorly, and the coach benched him. So that's kind of a rude awakening for him. But, that's life in the NBA as a rookie, especially when you're going up against a guy like Kyrie Irving. These guys, Kyrie Irving, John Wall, the East is full of these talented young point guards, and they're playing a different game. And I think their teams are benefiting from it. You look at Washington, they're already in the playoffs. In Cleveland, they're almost there as well.
Cleveland's a disappointment, but back to Utah. Geez, Trey Burke, he's had his ups and downs this season. There's no doubt about it. He's shown us that he can get her done on occasion, but it seems to me when he goes up against the Kyrie Irvings of the world, he just comes out flat. Is he intimidated, do you think? Or is it just nerves? Or is it he's trying too hard? What do you think the story is with him?
If it's anything, it's probably that he is trying too hard. He was always that one younger guy, smaller guy. He didn't have the overt athleticism or size that some of the other players had growing up playing AAU ball or in college even. So he kind of has that mentality that I'm going to beat this guy because I'm going to outwork him. Sometimes if you work too hard, you're actually not working as efficiently as you could. And it looked like when he goes up against, Damian Lillard or Kyrie Irving, some of these guys, Rondo even, he tries a little bit too hard and he gets ahead of himself. He needs to slow down, I think. And, in the games where he's let the game come to him, like in the game against Orlando where he absolutely decimated Victor Oladipo, that was a game where he didn't press. He just played his game. But in these games against these, tough NBA point guards, these all-stars, I guess he gets a little bit too ahead of himself.
Now, how did he do against Rubio, though, last week? I think he was okay, but again, it's the same thing. The veteran point guards seem to carve him up, don't they?
Yeah, and the thing about Rubio is that Rubio is a very underrated defender as well. He's always tops in the league in steals, it seems like, and you don't really think of that when you think of these European players. He plays defense. He gets at it. And I think that when you play a guy who doesn't let up on either side of the ball, that's obviously going to be a new thing for you, especially in college. I'm sure with some of the games that these colleges schedule, not every game is as important as every single NBA game. So you can kind of coast at times. That's not the case, and a lot of rookies are finding that out.
And that's how they get their baptism by fire.
Yeah, exactly. But for some of these guys who can't get past that rookie wall, it's like it's not even a baptism by fire. It's just like the meat falls off the barbecue into the charcoals and you never pick it up again. They just get roasted.
Yeah, that's what happens too. You know what else? When these veteran guys see these so-called can't-miss lottery picks who haven't done a thing yet in the NBA and they're picking up big checks, they seem to play harder against these young fellas and take them to school a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's, like, if you're a veteran, you've been in the league, at least 5 years to be considered a veteran, not just a guy on a rookie contract or an extended contract. And they kind of like feel like they need to show people their place. There has to be that meritocracy. There has to be that, I've been here, I know more than you. I don't like the fact that you automatically get this status just because you're the new young flavor. And I guess in some regard, that's kind of what Tyrone Corbin has been quoted as talking about, or people talking about Tyrone Corbin have said that as well, that he believes that you kind of have to earn it. And these veteran guys, they've definitely been showing, like, it's not just Trey Burke, but Michael Carter-Williams has had some bad games, and almost all of these guys, Tim Hardaway Jr., the veterans definitely want to show why they are still in the league. And, if let's just move to something else, like blogging. If there's some new blogger who was trying to get, some business and trying to look like he's all that, I'd try and bury him, because I've been doing this for at least 5-6 years now. So I think that's only human nature.
Well, I'm the same way. We get people take shots at our show all the time, and I usually ignore it, but there are times when I let them have it. But I do it with my microphone because my platform's a lot bigger than theirs, and I don't even need to name their names because, quite frankly, why give them any extra business? But yeah, we take them to school because that's what we do. We do that in sport. We do that in life. But if you had to pick someone for folks to really kind of watch out for in the last few weeks of the season, who would that be?
Well, I think all eyes are right now on Gordon Hayward. He's got about 20 games left this season. Actually, I know the exact number. The Jazz play 24 more games. So he's got 24 more games before he hits restricted free agency. And his shot is gone this season. He has to find other ways to contribute. He's actually competing against himself now instead of competing against the rest of the NBA, the rest of the free agency class, or the rest of the other, shooting guards or small forwards who have their money. Like, he has to fight through himself, and you're going to have to see, either good things or bad things in what he does every day. And for the last few weeks, he's really turned it up. He's getting it done in assists and rebounds. He'll end up scoring over 10 points a game, but maybe some of that comes at the line. In the last game, he shot really well from downtown, so he's kind of inconsistent, but overall, I think that he's the guy you have to watch for the Jazz, because he's the guy who stands the most to gain from the rest of these games.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? I think I was on the show with you a while ago when we were talking about signing him now, extending him now. He's going to wind up in Boston.
Well, they're definitely interested in him, and I don't know if you're in a lot of communication with Boston sports fans, but they've sent me a number of emails or asking about Hayward or coming onto the blog and talking about him. The fans definitely want him. They see that it would be a good fit with their coach. Obviously, they have their connection in Butler. As a Jazz fan, if you are going to see one of your draft picks go away, you'd probably want him to go away to a situation where he would thrive and succeed, and Boston definitely looks like that would be a good fit for him. Personally, I would want him to stay with Utah because, he's our guy. But if he goes to Boston, he goes to Boston. And I think that he would do really well because Rondo is the ball handler and Hayward can focus on doing the things that made him successful instead of having to do everything.
I think he'd make a nice fit in Chicago, too.
Yeah, well, Utah fans are already so upset about Chicago because they're in the process of signing Jimmer Fredette as a free agent because he cleared waivers. But in Chicago as well. But Chicago's already got so many good wing guys. Like, he would probably benefit playing with Carlos Boozer because Boozer is a way better passer than any of the other bigs that Hayward has ever played with. The same with Noah. Noah's fantastic. So that would be a good fit as well. Almost any of these teams, you know, just not New York or Brooklyn. Like he would do well in Toronto as well. You know, they call that White Vegas for a reason.
Oh yeah, I like White Vegas. That's my saying. I say it all the time, but as you know, but honestly, yeah, he has this opportunity to go to Boston if he gets a chance and be the next great White Hope.
Yeah, there would be almost too much pressure there. Whereas in Utah, it's so divided by like, oh, well, you know, Derek Favors is our best player, or some people say Trey Burke, and some others say Gordon Hayward. But yeah, if he goes to Boston, that would really suck for a lot of Jazz fans. But you know, I would more worry about the fact that Utah is also going to be dumping off a lot of salary this year. They're getting rid of Richard Jefferson's $11 million. They're getting rid of Andres Biedrin's $9 million. Getting rid of Marvin Williams, 7.5, Brandon Rush's 4. They should have enough money to match any offer, and that's the beauty of restricted free agency. I can imagine Boston throwing a lot of money at him, even so much as maybe 14 per. I think the Jazz would have to swallow that and say, well, you know, this is our guy, we want to keep him, and we'll put our money where our mouth is. So, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens on January 1st. Hopefully Boston doesn't go for the home run here and just give him 16 off the bat, because Utah will not be able to match that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it ought to be interesting. But coming up for the Jazz on Wednesday night, they are on the road with Washington. Then on Friday, the Knicks. Then on Saturday, the Sixers. And then they come back home Monday for games with Atlanta, and on Wednesday night with Dallas. This is not going to be an easy road, but the one thing that's pretty clear to me is Ty Corbin wants to keep his job. And you know what? They may as well let him, because they've gotten a lot more wins than most people thought they would.
Yeah, I thought the Jazz would win around 21 games this year, and they're already at that mark. So anything else is basically playing with house money. The road in March is really rough, and that's probably going to make or break it with a lot of these guys, I think. Be them contract year veterans or some of the coaching staff, who knows? Or even some of the guys who are on contract, because you could always still trade a guy in the offseason if you don't think that they're going to fit your team. The Jazz are probably going to make a few draft day trades. But getting to Tyrone Corbin and trying to keep his job, yeah, he's trying to keep his job, but it may not be a job with the Jazz. At this stage, he's probably also auditioning for positions with other franchises. And I think if he can steer the Jazz to a respectable record, I think that that's only going to help him in the long run. And I think that's what he's trying to do here. He hasn't caved in. He hasn't played the 5 lottery picks together much this season. He's always trying to maximize, or at least in his idea, maximize what his team can do on the floor. And if they continue to be a 500 team, that's going to steer the Jazz out of a good lottery spot, which may, you know, secure his future with the Jazz as a no. Like, hey, you screwed us out of a good spot, we don't want you back. But that some other GM may say, hey, look at how good he did with this crappy team. Maybe we should give him a shot. So, you know, if Ty can do it, he can do it. But I don't think that he will.
It's amazing that you get penalized for trying to be successful. Oh, man.
What a crazy world we live in.
Yeah, that just makes no sense. They should come to Corfu. That's where they belong, because they don't try for anything exceptional here. Anyhow, great stuff. You all come back now after the break, and Amar and I will take a look at the wild, wacky Eastern Conference. And we'll be right back. You're listening to The Phil Naessens Show.
The Phil Naessens Show will return.
You are a meathead.
dead from the neck up.
After these brief messages.
Central Portugal's only English-speaking information station, this is Epics Radio. Listen online, www.epicsradio.com.
Brewtown Sports is your source for Brewers news and notes. Join Mr. Brewtown as he keeps you up to date on all the happenings of your Milwaukee Brewers and Major League Baseball. Follow the show on Facebook and Twitter, Brewtown Sports. Listen 24/7 at brewtownsports.podomatic.com.
Are you a fan of historical fiction? If you are, then why not try author Mary Ann Bernal's The Briton and the Dane series of historical fiction novels. You can purchase these novels from her website at www.maryannbernal.com. That's www.maryannbernal.com. Are you looking to escape into lands full of fantasy, drama, and adventure? If you are, why not try author Kay Medder's books? Their journey begins, Journey to Freedom, The Night of the Dixie Wilds, On Top of the Rainbow, and Transcendence will get you there. Kay Medder's books are available as an ebook or in paperback, and you can find her at authorkmedder.com. That's authorkmedor.com.
If you like baseball, you should be checking out baseballpodcasts.net. It's one of the best places you can go on the internet to listen to independent baseball talk shows. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on our radio player that can be heard around the world. So won't you tune in and give us a listen at baseballpodcast.net. You can also listen to the great Phil Naessens show here. See you there at baseballpodcast.net.
Riveting talk radio.
People cannot get away from the internet.
Well, I think it probably comes from porn as well. You know what I mean? That's got to be a big, strong thing.
Oh, that's gross. That's disgusting.
It freaks me out.
My cheeks are sealed.
We love talk radio.
Bend over, baby.
Do you see what I'm saying?
WeirdTalkSuperstation.com.
Better than sex.
I don't know how good sex is.
We're going to do a lot of drinking.
Talk radio. Bend over, baby. That was great.
Hi, this is Phil Naessens from This Week in Tennis and the Phil Naessens Show. Max Sports Channels offers the best in sports talk radio, as well as great music 24 hours a day. It's my daily destination, and I hope it's yours. The sports talk begins each and every day at 3 p.m. and it ends around 9 p.m. Special programming on the weekends, and in between all that, the hottest music on the internet. That's Max Sports Channels. Make it your daily destination.
You're listening to AFR, the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now.
And it's the reason Al Gore invented the internet.
Back to the Phil Naessens Show.
Shut up! Shut up!
Yes. Shut up.
Shut up! You're telling me to shut up?
Oh, please, just shut up. I am so sick of hearing you talking all the time. Don't you ever just shut up?
Welcome back to the Phil Naessens Show. The Eastern Conference is, how should I say, very rocky, but there are 4 teams on the bubble, and we want to take a look at some of those tonight. And Amar here is with me. He's from slcdunk.com. Amar, what do you like about the New York Knicks' chances of making the playoffs?
Well, I like the fact that they're a historical franchise that plays in the best arena in the league for the loudest fans. But besides that, I don't think they have a serious chance of making the playoffs. They're in a huge slide right now. Like, we're recording on the weekend, and they're 2-8 in their last 10 games. Melo is trying to do all he can on offense, but I think that we both know that the real problem here is defense.
Absolutely. We certainly do. I had my mic muted. But that's what it is. It's the defense. It's the switching. You know, I like to blame Carmelo for everything because he's the face of the franchise. He's the general manager. He's the coach. He got his wish. And unfortunately, last season they had a lot of veterans, and those veterans are not there. But the core six are still in place. Those guys who carried the load offensively and defensively for the majority of every game are still on the basketball team. There's no excuse to be 21-38, to lose 9 out of 11, to get blown out of your own barn by 40 points by probably the second worst team in the East. There's no excuse for any of these things. It all falls on the head of this awful defense, this switching defense by Mike Woodson.
Yeah, it kind of worked when you had everyone around the same athleticism like he had in Atlanta for a while. But with New York, there's so much variation. Like, you can't expect a guy like Pablo to cover a small forward. You know, like, that's silly. And what's been the worst is that you've had like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, a guy who was the anchor on so many good defensive teams in Tyson Chandler. And with this defense, either Chandler's taking a step back or Woodson's plan is hurting what he's good at. But, you know, he's almost neutered out there. And, you know, he's the guy who's supposed to be challenging shots, getting rebounds, and making sure that New York can plan their counterattack on offense. And they're just not getting the stops this year.
No, but you know what else isn't falling is those threes that they were hitting last season. But then, you know what? You had Steve Novak hitting those threes. You had Jason Kidd for the majority of the season hitting those threes. Those two guys are no longer there. Chris Copeland was another one who was jacking those threes. J.R. Smith was jacking those threes. J.R. Smith has disappeared into the Rihanna abyss. And he should continue to wear that mask. He should wear that black mask that LeBron wore, or the NBA doesn't want LeBron to wear. He should be the one to wear it. And maybe they give two of them and give his boy Ray Felton one too. But if Ray Felton wears a mask out there, I don't think it's a good idea because, you know, they'll think he's the burglar from Sesame Street. He would look like him, a short little fat guy.
Yeah,
it's just sad. But the Knicks, I've written them off, Amar. I'm done with them. I never, as you know, agree with Stephen A. Smith, or rarely, I should say. But in this case, you know what? We fell for the trap, New York City fans. Never again will I let them break my heart the way they did this year and embarrass me to be a Knicks fan. They're an embarrassment. They're a bubble team. Their schedule is kind of conducive for them to make a run, but they haven't made a run all year. The only thing that they've run, Amar, are their mouths when they talk about how bad they are after the games and how pathetic everything is, but yet they've not done a thing to try to fix it.
Well, you can say that there are a lot of things that went wrong this year, but at least Isaiah Thomas isn't in your front office anymore.
Well, I'd rather have him right now.
Oh, no.
This is how I feel about the Knicks, and I have to stop because I might ruin the rest of my weekend talking about these bums. But another team that we can say is headed in the right direction are the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we talked a little bit about them earlier with Kyrie Irving and his triple-double. Deion Waiters is out, and all of a sudden they're starting to win again. What in the world is going on there?
Well, I think it really comes down to the fact that out of all these bubble teams, you know, New York, Detroit, Cleveland, whatever, or even some of the teams that are in the playoffs right now, like Atlanta, the only player that's really stepping up and helping his team win games is Kyrie Irving out of all these All-Stars. And, you know, Cleveland's got a ton of injuries. They don't have Andy Varejao. You know, Anthony Bennett is just a goof. I don't know if he even plays. And they're missing almost all of their shooting guards, but they're winning games right now. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. And a huge part of that is Kyrie Irving. It's his will to win. He's the point guard. He's the all-star. He's got the ball in his hands, and he's dictating things out there. What I like is his dribble penetration and decision-making. He's kind of like John Wall in that regard, that he's fast enough and strong enough to get his own shot near the rim, but also smart enough to know that, hey, I got guys who are spotting up. I should get them the ball. And I think that's the difference. Like, he doesn't play like Westbrook. He plays like a real point guard.
I like my man third row, but yeah, you're right. You know, I think winning the MVP of the All-Star game paid huge dividends for this young fella. And their schedule, when you look at it after the 7th of March, they have Charlotte, the Knicks, Phoenix, who I don't think is going to make the playoffs. Golden State, they're going to be all right. But the thing is they've got that West Coast road trip. They've got one more left. And then they've got a bunch of games on the road. And they wind up their season with, and this is great, they've got their last 5 games are Charlotte, Detroit, Milwaukee, Boston, and Brooklyn. And who knows what in the heck Brooklyn's going to look like on the 16th of April. I guess I kind of like their chances.
Yeah, I do too, especially because they're one of the better defensive teams out there. Like they play at a slow pace, but it's not to mask a poor defense like some teams do. They actually are pretty good, and this is, kudos to Mike Brown. Your offense is horrible and predictable, but on defense, you're able to defend other teams and not foul, not put other teams to the line. And, in the East, if you can avoid getting in foul trouble, that's going to help you out. And I think that's what Cleveland's doing right now.
Yeah, I think they might be all right. And that pickup, Spencer Hawes, with Vallejo out, Hawes has stepped in and done the same things he was doing in Philly. And that's what I've been telling people. This Hawes kid is coming to his own. He feels good. He's for real. And I like him. Now, the Detroit Pistons. This is another team, the Rucker Park Street Legends 2.0, I like to call them, or I refer to them as, because, Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith are there. What is going on? What do you think? Can they catch Atlanta? Because Atlanta, as you know, is slip sliding away. Can they step in there and get that A spot?
Well, it's going to take a brain transplant, really, for Josh Smith, because Detroit has all the pieces. They spent so much money in the offseason with these free agents, Josh Smith, Brandon Jennings. They brought Chauncey Billups back, the last sane person in Detroit, it seems. But then things didn't work out. And who knew that stocking your team with inefficient volume scorers isn't going to help you win games? Most of the internet can tell you that's not going to work. But that's what Detroit thought they had to do. And they're looking at the playoffs from the outside looking in, and I really don't think that they can do it unless they start to focus more on their younger guys and play a more efficient game. Drummond and Monroe should be the guys who are getting the ball. Instead, it's going to these guys who are jacking up, shots from no man's land, 20-footers off of 1 foot, and you wonder why they're not winning games.
Josh Smith is doing Josh Smith things, and that's why I call him the Rucker Park Street Legends 2.0. This was a bad signing. Honestly, it was a bad signing. I know Joe Dumars, he had some cash to spend, and he thought he had the right combination with Mo Cheeks and Josh Smith, but the reality is Josh Smith is just Josh Smith. He does Josh Smith things. He does fantastic things on the basketball floor, but it doesn't seem to benefit the team very much. And that's a problem. And their schedule going out is not so conducive for catching anyone. From Wednesday, they have Indiana, Cleveland, Memphis, Denver. Who knows what's going to happen in Denver? Then they have Washington, Minnesota. Even though I stick a fork in them, they might be able to knock off the Pistons. Then they have Atlanta, who's reeling, Brooklyn, Portland, Houston, Brooklyn, Orlando, Washington again. And that closes out their month of March. It's a tough road for them to hoe, and I don't think that they have the veteran leadership on that basketball team to do that.
No, they don't. And it's kind of funny because when you look at the free agents that they did bring in, it's like, well, what do these guys bring to a franchise? And it seems like the only thing that they bring is star power. And perhaps that was the idea that maybe Joe Dumars was told, hey, we need some stars here because we need to put butts in the seats because no one's coming to Pistons games. In that sense, maybe it was a success, but they're not real veterans who are going to, teach or mentor or shoulder the blame when things are going wrong. And you're right. I don't think that they have that core leadership, kind of like what New York is missing because of the guys that they don't have there this year. They're in the same boat, except they don't have a real good scorer like Melo.
What do you think? Chauncey Billups the coach next season?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I don't necessarily go to Pistons games, but I'd buy a few tickets to see how that works out.
Yeah, it's working out in Brooklyn, an ex-player. Why not? You never know. But I just don't see them going anywhere. Now, look at Atlanta. We've got a few minutes left. Atlanta's reeling. They've lost so much, man. They've lost all their big men. I mean, they are in real trouble. They've lost, what? At the time of this recording, they've lost 3, 6, 7, 8, 10 out of the last 11 games. It's not a pretty picture in Atlanta. Jeff Teague is hanging in there, but they've lost, what? Millsap, they lost Horford, they lost the young kid, the Piero Antic. They lost so many guys. Can this team rebound and hang on, you think? Because I'm thinking it's going to get worse before it gets better for Atlanta, right? At least this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, it looks like a wrap for them this year. Like you said, they're on a huge slide, and they had to make room to sign Mike Muscala, who was a rookie this year that, we saw him, Michael and I saw him at the NBA Draft Combine, and, he's a hard worker, but he's not a talented NBA caliber player. So right now their big men are basically Elton Brand and him and Mike Scott. They've missed so much, and you're right. If you don't have your bigs, you're not going to have the rebounds, and if you don't have the rebounds, you can't start winning games and rebound from the slide. So it's going to be bad, but it's not all bad, Atlanta, because there's something cool that they can do. That they actually have the right to swap first-round picks with Brooklyn this year. So that may work out in their favor because, who knows what's going to happen with the Nets. But if the Atlanta Hawks don't make the playoffs themselves, then they may not elect to do that at all. But at least they have their options. It's just not going to work out for them this year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think so. But they do have a nice little nucleus Danny Ferry's building, and I enjoy watching that team play. Lately I haven't because they don't seem to even enjoy playing, and why would you want to? Your whole season has been decimated by injuries, and that was a team just 4 weeks ago that was the number 3 seed in the East. And it's important to note that they are turning the corner, and they'll get back to doing Atlanta things, meaning they'll make the playoffs, and they'll lose in the first round, and all will return to the NBA as well.
Exactly. Yeah, and like you said, they have some good pieces. Jeff Teague, Lou Williams, Kyle Korver. These are guys that you can, at least tread water with, at least from your guard spots. They have a good prospect in Dennis Schroeder. They have that Brazilian big man who's not in the league this year. I think Atlanta's going to be okay. And especially with, All-Star Millsap and former All-Star Horford coming back next year, the sky is almost the limit. And by that I mean probably the 4th seed in the East.
Yeah, you never know. And then you've got a couple other teams here that we can probably talk about next week. In Charlotte, I think Charlotte's going to hang on myself. I don't see how they can't. They seem to be playing pretty decent basketball. Kemba Walker's doing his thing, and that's nice. And Al Jefferson, hey, your former Utah Jazz mate over there, he's doing all right.
Yeah, Big Al's been a beast, and you're right. Charlotte, they're in it to be in the playoffs. They made some really good trades. They got Luke Ridnour for Ramon Sessions. I think that they're pretty solid at all of their positions, and probably the best thing for them right now is that they're one of the healthiest of these bubble teams. So as a team that's trying to fight to stay in, I think that they're definitely a lock to stay in.
I agree with you. In Brooklyn, we can talk about next week because who knows, by the time next week rolls around, they might not even be in the top 8. You never know with that basketball.
You never know, exactly.
Hey, great stuff today, Amar. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
My pleasure.
That was Amar. You can find him at slcdunk.com, and that's going to wrap it up for today's Phil Naessens Show. I want to thank all my guests for making this a great NBA basketball show. Tomorrow we'll talk a little basketball, and we'll talk NFL draft combine results, and we'll try to figure out where Johnny Manziel will wind up. Until then, you all take care of yourselves. Be good. And most importantly,
ladies and gentlemen, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you.